Hey everyone, I'm trying a thing here. I realized that I'm going live. I'm assuming that there's no one watching. Good, there's no one watching right now. I'm testing out my thing here. See how it goes. Share screen. Just kind of have that open window. Oh. Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me. I'm going to spend the next 30 or so minutes uh, framing, framing the problem. I'm going to spend the next 30 or so minutes framing the problem and discussing ways to get involved with the zero. Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes or so framing the problem with plastic pollution and discussing ways to get involved with the zero waste movement and how to transition to a circular economy. Let's start with a couple terms. The linear economy versus a circular economy and the definition of zero waste. Here, you can see on the screen, the linear economy just goes one way. We take, we take from the environment, we make something. So let's just say we take oil from the ground. We Oil is not a great example, but because it turns into gas. But let's just talk about it for a second. We take oil from the ground, we make it turn into gas, we use it in our car, and then it wastes it and it goes in the atmosphere and it creates global warming. But let's take another thing that's more trash related. We use oil to make a bottle of Coca-Cola. We take that from the ground, we make a Coca-Cola bottle, we drink the Coca-Cola, and then we waste it. We throw it in the trash, and it goes to landfill. Recycling economy is kind of like the middle between recycling and circular. We take something from the ground, kind of like the Coke bottle, but instead of throwing it out the first time, we instead of throwing it out, we recycle it and it turns into something else a couple times. Then eventually it turns into waste. So it just kind of like goes a little bit. We use it one or two more times before it becomes waste. The circular economy is we take it, we make it. So we take, let's just say it's a glass bottle. We use energy to take the resources to make that, and then we put Coca-Cola in it, and then when we're done with it, we return it back to someone. They wash it and they use it again, and this cycle can go on for more or less infinity. And that way, nothing is going into the trash. That's just one example. Let's talk about zero waste. Zero waste is a goal that is ethical, economical, efficient, and visionary to guide people in changing their lifestyles and practices to emulate sustainable natural cycles where all discarded materials are designed to become resources for others to use. So this is kind of one of the other things that we're talking about. This is another one of our goals, is trying to get to zero waste can help us get to the circular economy by not wasting anything. So since this is a reading crowd, I'm going to start off with a book recommendation. I must say it's quite fitting to do this talk at a library event. After all, books are what led me on this path of sustainability. I was always under the impression that if I bought, we could buy our way out of this. Like if we bought something sustainable, then eventually businesses would come around to realizing, oh, like consumers want this kind of thing, and it'll head that direction. My wife did not agree with me. She recommended this book here, Naomi Klein, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate. And sort of shows you like the scale of the problem. And the book made a compelling argument for why we need to rethink the way we live our lives. Let's talk about the problem. All right. The problem is of plastic pollution. From a materials perspective, I'm going to focus on the problem of plastic. From a materials perspective, I'm going to talk about the problem with plastic. Let's kind of go through materials a little bit. But plastic has its advantages. It's lightweight, it's waterproof, it's malleable. Plastic comes from the Greek meaning can be shaped, and it's really cheap. But those same advantages make it terrible for the environment. It takes 500 years to break down. Its cheapness is what makes it so abundant that a dump truck full of plastic enters the ocean every minute. This is going in every minute. So I've been talking for 5 minutes. 5 of those have gone in the ocean. And really, it's less of a problem of, oh, like people shouldn't be dumping it in the ocean. That's true, they shouldn't be, but we have so much plastic that we don't know what to do with it. We're just creating new plastic every minute. So we need to stop the production of plastic. I'm going to get into that in a second. How do we get there? Let's talk about history. So from the 1950s to the 70s, only a small amount of plastic was produced, so plastic waste was relatively manageable. By the 90s, plastic waste generation had more than tripled in 2 decades, following a similar rise in plastic production. 90s, 37. I was like 10 or so. The early 2000s, when I was, in high school, about to go to college, our output of plastic waste rose more than a single decade than it had in the previous 40 years. So from 2000 to 2010, it increased more than from 1960 to 2000. And now today, we produce about 300 million tons of plastic waste each year. That's nearly the equivalent to the weight of the entire human population. And that is huge because plastic weighs very, very little. Like you could stack up a small thing of plastic bottles and put that next to me, and it would probably, I weigh about 175. It would probably weigh 2 pounds. It would probably weigh like just a few pounds. So thinking about how much even more than the human population, I know that's hard to think about, that you have like, I don't know, there's 6 billion people in the world or 8 billion people in the world, but there's that people. But if you did that by height, it's probably, it's probably 2 or 3 times the human population to get that amount of plastic by weight. It's innate. It's insane. Let's talk about some of the other problems with plastic. It's making us sick. We're eating approximately one credit card worth of plastic each week. It gets into our water supply. It's everywhere. Just imagine 52 of those a year. Let's say 5 map week 9. Also, plastic is it's not just I should change these around. All right, let's get on this ocean garbage. Yes. We're eating about one credit card worth a week of plastic. It's a lot of plastic. It's so abundant. It's getting into our water supply, and it's getting into our food. It's in everywhere. It's like these tiny little particles that we can't see. It's ruining our natural environment. We have these beautiful oceans and these places that we want to go. It's being ruined by all this plastic pollution. Look at that. I mean, do you want to see that out there? I definitely don't want to see that. This next slide is it's a lot. I'm sure lots of you guys have seen the turtle. Sometimes the turtle has started this anti-plastic straw movement. So let's check it out now. Avert your eyes if you're squeamish. I mean, this one makes me so sad. What did this little turtle do to deserve this? This is a plastic straw that got up his nose. They think that he coughed it up and regurgitated it and went through his nose. They confuse plastic with food all the time, and so they can't tell the difference. So, all our plastic waste is turning into, it's hurting animals. It's killing wildlife. So this animal, he survived or she survived, but it just breaks my heart. Marine animals. 100 million marine animals die each year from plastic waste. It's in all the turtles, 59% of whales, 300,000 dolphins die each year as a result of being entangled in discarded fishing nets and other items. And the seabirds have found plastic pieces in their stomachs. It's really sad. And not only is it just killing wildlife and destroying our natural environment and making us sick as humans and killing the birds and the animals, it's also a climate crisis. It pollutes at every stage of the way. So plastic is made from oil, and it's an energy-intensive process to make plastic. At 50, so for us, it's part of the climate solution. Let's talk about where does our trash go? I think this is one of my favorite topics. There's a few streams that it goes to. Ooh, this isn't supposed to be book recommendations yet. Where does our trash go? So there's a few different places that trash. Where's the trash go? Have you thought much about where trash goes when you throw it away? It depends on where you live, but in New York City, the waste stream goes to a couple different places. You have landfill, which is like regular trash, and then you have recycling, which has two parts. You have the paper recycling, and then everything else, which is really metal, glass, and plastic. Two different bins. It's called dual stream. The unfortunate part about recycling is that only 10% of plastic ever made has been recycled. Recycling has. Let's see how to change this. Please, nobody watch. Oh, is that because it's not on? Put this on. save this. Let's save. Export as PDF, right? I thought about where our trash goes. Have you ever thought about where our trash goes when it goes away? It depends on where you live, but in NYC, the waste stream goes to two different places. Two places. You have landfill, which is regular trash, and recycling. The unfortunate truth about recycling is that only 10% of plastic So we'll give you a free bin.